Your book is kind of a
Yeah.
a highlight reel of some of the strange childhood trauma that maybe you didn't realize was trauma.
Yeah, my book is called Joyful Recollections of Trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that I've often told these stories about my life, especially on How Did This Get Made, and thinking like, this is normal. Like my grandma told me, don't answer the door because there's a butcher down the block who grinds kids up into chopped meat. Right. And the reason the way they caught him was one of the moms bought some chopped meat, and as she was frying it up, the little burger said, "Mommy."
Oh my Lord!
How old were you?
I was young enough to believe that chopped meat could
real.
talk.
Yeah,
right.
Right. So, and I would tell that story, and Jason and June would look at me like, "Wait, what? What do you mean chop? Wait, what is this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, the butcher makes him to chop meat for kills
Things
the kids."
that felt normal and fine.
And so you start to tell these stories like, "Oh yeah, I one time I went into the city to go see a naked lady." They're like, "Wait, hold on, what did you do?"
What
I'm
is
like,
that story?
Yeah, and so I said things off the cuff all the time and never really gave it that much thought. And people were like, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book." And I knew that like if I wanted to write a book, I'd have to go a little bit deeper than the anecdote of like what that was.
Right.
And I really took it seriously. So I started writing and just seeing where that kind of led. And I think the book is very different than the book that I intended to write. It has all these things, all these like funny things, weird moments with Christopher Walken, doing stuff at UCB. It's not really a book about my path as an actor as much as it is like as a dad or, finding my wife, and that like this kind of thing. And one of the bigger through lines of it is my mom got remarried at one point to this like super abusive dude. And we lived in this insane situation where we were basically had nobody to help us get out of it. And so, the first part of the book is really like that, like living under that thing and then kind of escaping it. And then
how old were you when she,
I was
years?
Like 5th grade is I think when we were able to get out. Yeah. So like 5th
so
or 6th
your
grade.
childhood was under this monster.
Yeah. So it was a really like intense thing. And, it's always been a part of the story, but I've never really talked about it. Even to my wife, when she read the book, she was like, "Wait, this happened?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess."
Totally.
Because it's like, there's a little bit of a stigma on it too, to talk about stuff like that. Like, cause it's like, I don't want to bum people out or I don't know. And it's private or whatever. But I think what was kind of interesting about it was I look back on those moments. I have insane stories about like, I played hide and go seek with this girl who I went to school with who, her dad was, I guess, working for a very high up military figure. And when we went missing because we were playing hide and go seek, they sent a SWAT team after us.
Oh my God.
So there's stuff like that in there. But then there's also this thing about like the ramifications of living in a house that is that kind of that, and then kind of being like, how do I want to create my version of it? And am I okay to do that? Because I was a little scared to kind of have kids and open that world up because it was a little. It was like, I don't want to fall into that trap. I don't want to be that person, even though I wasn't. So that's it's kind of wrestling with a bunch of different stuff in that area.
Have you taken your kids to see a naked woman yet?
I mean, soon. Once my kids turn 10 in a couple weeks, so that's when I would
Gareth,
do it. Yeah.
Right.
Great question.
Well, I just want to make sure we're carrying on a good tradition.
Oh, here's what I'll say. I love showing my kids movies, and I try to be smart about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the person who's like, I like this movie, watch this movie. I'm like, I look at them, I go, I think you'll like this, and then I play it. So Happy Gilmore, giant hit, falling off the couch,
fun,
dying laughing. They both have crushes on Julie Bowen now. Like they think that she's the hottest woman of all time, and it's amazing.
Still, if they see Old Modern Family, still,
and so they're all in. But then I'm like, all right, well, what else could we do? Like they're liking this stuff, and I showed them Adventures in Babysitting.
Oof.
And
the original,
great movie,
great
so
movie.
funny. And then you realize there are things in these movies that we just don't see in regular movies anymore. Like the big crux of that movie is that she looks like a Playboy centerfold. It's a peachy movie, but that's the runner, is that Elizabeth Shue looks like the girl who's on the cover of Playboy. Then they steal a Playboy, and the Playboy is in play the entire movie. So my kids don't even know what a Playboy is, but they're like, ooh, and there's no nudity, but it's like, ooh. And then, and you're like, oh, wait, no, I don't want you to watch this now. Because then there's this other weird moment where they're picking up this girl from like the bus station, her Elizabeth Shue's friend. That it's like a real like deep plot.
The nerdy friend.
The nerdy friend. And so she has been at the bus station all night, and she's kind of passed out in the back seat. And Anthony Rapp, who plays like the funny friend, as she's passed out, he like picks up her jacket to like kind of check out her boobs. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Fucking A.
Why are we putting this into the rest of the movie? Totally
yeah.
fine, but there's like these weird
So funny.
curve moments that you're like, yikes! Like why?
Whoa.
Like we don't need that.
PG.
Yeah, like like it, but it is like it's funny, man. Like what, like because you could see him like. Because like at one point, like Anthony Rapp is like, she's got big, and they're like, whoa. Like they're like so psyched that there's a movie talking about boobs. It's like, and then you feel it so much more when you're like when you're watching it with that eye. Like, like every one of these movies, they have something incredibly. Goonies opens up with a guy trying to kill himself.
Oh, Goonies, that's crazy.
It's like suicide, like hanging by, and then you're like, I can't take this.
I'll tell you the weird thing I'm doing with my kids and what, because I have 2 daughters.
Yeah.
So all the movies I loved, I've always seen them from like a boy's point of view.
Yeah.
All the characters from the movies I grew up, all the girls are hot, and the ones that the main characters crush after.
Yeah.
And my kids are not interested. So I'm like, I'll be like, wait till you see Stand By Me. Within 10 minutes, they're like, it's just about these boys walking around talking about crushes. And I was like,
well,
no, it's a great story.
There's
about,
a body.
I'm like, oh, it's a great story about all boys,
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
all boys stuff. But the thing I got them into that is not appropriate, but I really like is Catfish.
Really?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because I like having them know people on the internet are crazy, and this isn't real life.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
So like, it's like a weird. They'll like watch, and now my daughter, we were watching one last night. She'll do things during an episode. She'll be like, "There's no way she's real, or she has emotional problems." And I'm like,
Wow.
pretty awesome response.
By the way, that's a really smart way because I've found my kids now are watching kids YouTube,
Yes.
and they'll reveal things to me like, well, I know this, I know that. I'm like, well, okay, hold on
Yeah,
one second.
yeah.
Where are we getting this information? Because YouTube may be for kids, but it doesn't have to be factual.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
tricky
yeah.
thing, it's like, and so sometimes the kids will come in with like giant, like the kid brain stuff. It's like, oh, there's a dog bigger than a house. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yes.
I saw a picture of a
How big is
dog
this house?
bigger than a
Totally.
house. And it's like, oh, that's Photoshop. And then like that was like June and I felt like we were so old last night watching TV and watching the NBA play-ins, and there's like a new Google phone, and it's like, and it's a guy like kind of making a little jump, and then it's like, with the new photo editor, and they like, he takes himself out and can like raise up his jump so he looks really awesome doing a jump, and then like a guy throwing a baby up in the air, and then they take out the baby and they raise it up, and he's like, you can just doctor your own reality.
Yeah.
I was like, this is
It's all
fucking
about
weird. Like,
jumping or throwing higher.
Yeah, I don't want like.
No.
I know.
It's like it's too convoluted to be like, oh yeah, this is great. It makes you look. It's just like to be like cheat your life now with this
Yeah.
new Google phone. Yeah. So my kids are falling victim to those pranks a lot.
One thing I want to give you credit for, Paul, because I've known you since when I started improv in New York. You were already hitting. You
Right.
were in Respecto, I remember.
Yeah.
Because I remember my early days with me and Oliver Raleigh.
Yeah.
I would be going to shows outside of UCB because you guys used to perform somewhere else.
Yeah, we performed. We were trying to get like the UCB had this Sunday night show called ASCAT. It was incredibly popular, and then we were like, well, why don't we do counter programming to that?
And
Because
who was that group? So I
that
remember
was
Riggle,
Respecto.
Hubel.
Riggle, Hubel, Jack McBrayer, Jackie Clark is an amazing writer, Daniel Schneider from Garbage World. I'm trying to think of who else is Chad Carter, brilliant writer. Oh my God, Hubel.
But your guys' class was a murderer's row.
It really was like this weird moment where we all got involved in UCB. I think we were the first ones through the door. Like we were the first ones taking classes.
Oh, you guys were the first round of students.
Oh, 100%. I was in the first level 3 class there ever was.
And so how
at
did
UCB.
you even hear about it?
Because
You went to New York to do comedy.
I went to New York to go to school.
Okay.
Like because I wanted to be an actor, but no one in my family had that as like a thing. So like, well, go to college first, get a backup career. So I went to School of Education at NYU, was getting my degree there, and I saw this improv group called Chicago City Limits, which did like short form.
I remember Chicago City Limits.
Right? And I was like, oh,
Yes.
this is cool. Short form improv. Every time this bell rings, we're going to change the last word. It felt magical and cool.
But had you grown up thinking about improv?
No. I saw this thing. I saw this thing in high school, and I was like, whoa, this is cool.
Right. But it wasn't part of your story.
No, and it was like, I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then when I had gotten involved with Chicago City Limits, they were like, oh, I heard about this like group called Upright Citizens Brigade. They're in from Chicago, and they're doing this show like at this place called like Solo Arts. And Solo Arts is like above an abandoned hardware store, 5 floors up on like, 17th Street between 5th and 6th. It was like
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even like a
nothing.
theater. And you would go up there and it was like a 50-seat theater, and you just watch like Adam McKay and Tina Fey and Rachel
Crazy.
Dratchik all perform with them and do the show. And when I saw that, I was like, this is
it.
it.
Yeah.
Like what I'm doing seemed immediately lame, and I thought what I was doing was the coolest thing. Like right. So it was like that thing of like, oh, that's
The thing.
yeah, that's the thing. And I just put all my energy into that. So I was in those first rounds of classes, and I had performed at Chicago City Limits, so I had a slight head, like a little bit of a leg up because I've been doing it, but differently. And yeah, and that group that kind of like, there's a lot of people who fell by the wayside, but I would say
A lot of that group works.
I would say like 30 of us that
Yes.
all like started very much in the beginning. And that was a kind of, I think the thing is like Second City, we were the first wave. So there was a bigger connection than I'm coming to a school to make friends. It's like we were painting the walls of a theater. We were,
that's cool.
flying
Great.
in the 14th Street. Like we were,
That
like it was
makes more
our
sense.
theater, it was, and the UCB really empowered us in that way. It was like, no, we're doing shows. And when the UCB theater first opened, I did 5 shows a week because it was like 3 shows a night. And you were just like, and you were just getting so much stage time. And it was amazing.
And then it popped.
Then it popped.
In
And then
New
all of a
York.
sudden famous
Yeah.
people were like showing up. And it was like, holy
It
shit.
all of a sudden, because I was in New York before it popped,
Yeah.
and then I was in New York when that explosion happened, where you went like, what the fuck is this? Because I came out of Chicago,
Yeah.
where Second
Second
City,
City, yeah.
was improv always your thing?
Yeah, pretty much, especially when I moved out here and everything.
But even before, like when,
When
you were
totally.
growing
When I was
up, you-
14,
it was-
similar
that
to
was-
that,
yes.
I saw it for the first time and I was like, what the fuck
Yeah.
is
that's
this?
the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
amazing.
But more than like, was stand up ever a desire for you? Because
I
it feels
love-
like it's such different paths
Oh, yeah.
I
that now are merging, but it was so different back in the day.
I love stand up. I loved like Eddie Murphy. I loved all that stuff, but I liked sketch more. And I like, and then when I saw improv, it felt like, oh, this is the right kind of connection. Like stand up never felt like, I like the collaboration too.
I like scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like scenes and working with people. Like being
building.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, as someone who's bombed at both,
Yeah.
there's something so much easier about bombing and improv. Like if you
Yeah.
have you're at least able to
Yeah.
come back and commiserate. Whereas
Whoa, I mean,
stand-up bombing
yeah.
is so lonely.
There is like, I talk about this in my book for a second too. Like you're always trying to impress people when you're coming up, and like the State, which was
Oh,
you know
yeah.
David
Yeah,
Wayne
yeah,
and
yeah,
Ken
yeah.
Marino and all those guys. Like
Showalter,
they
all
had
those.
this like offshoot show called like Stella.
Yep.
So that was like
Yeah,
Showalter, Wayne,
Michael Ian
and
Black.
Michael Ian Black.
Yeah.
And it was in the cool place called Fez, and it was downtown, right
Yeah,
next to a
yeah.
Blue Man Group, and it was like everyone was there because you would go to that show, and not only was it packed with like real audience, but it was also like you'd see like Jon Stewart, or you'd see like
interesting.
Paul Rudd, all these people like, oh, I know that, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
right? It was like,
yeah.
and it just felt like a cool show. They asked us to come and do a bit, and
Oh,
we're like,
wow.
we have to do this.
Who's they?
Right, the Stella guy?
No.
So the Respecto.
Oh, the whole
So
group.
they
Okay.
said, come do a bit. Like, and we're like, okay, we're going to do a bit, but we're not going to do a bit that we normally do. We're going to do, because we want to play to the room. We want to show them how good we are. So we wrote this bit where we were going to be the Blue Man Group, right? We paint ourselves blue. We're in our jumpsuits. We come down because we're right under the Blue Man Group, the way that this show was. And we're like doing all this dumb stuff with marshmallows. And we pull somebody out from the audience who's a plant, and we like bring them backstage just like the Blue Man Group does. And at that point, it was going to cut to a video, and we had already pre-shot the video, and it was a pre-tape, and we get them backstage, and we're fucking with them so much that we actually break their neck and they die. and when they die, like we get covered in blood. And so we go off stage to cue the video, and then there's silence, nothing. And we're like, oh God. And then I hear just like this little voice go like, projector's not working.
Oh my god.
Now at this point, we're covered in blood, and there's no connection to why we're blue, and now why we're covered in blood. And we've already established we can't talk because we're the Blue Man Group. So we have to figure out how to come back out on stage. So we have this opening that's really fun and weird, and people are into it. And then it's like no video. And then we have to like come out on stage and be like, and then like somebody just yelled out like, we killed somebody. And then we just ran.
Oh my God.
Like we didn't know what to do. And then but bombing with like, that was a bomb in a room with
Bond
like
bombing.
Bond, and then you like just go to like, how can we get to the bar
As
to
soon
drink,
as we
and then
can.
like
Yeah.
just to
Oh,
be
yeah.
able to be like, but
So
yeah,
fun.
it's so much better than
Yeah.
someone watching be like, oh yeah, this sucked. It's like no, we all
Yeah.
ate it together.
But then how did you get to Human Giant? So you
Yeah.
were doing because I remember I
Yeah.
saw it, or like it was very clear from my generation. And more when I say my generation, there was a group of us, the Gethards and all that, but I
Yeah.
wasn't part of them. I was part of Oliver Raleigh and my
Right.
buddy Bill Bungeroth tonight.
I feel like there was a couple of these like island offshoots. It was like you guys, then there was like Mike Birbiglia and Nick Kroll. They were like
they were different.
Yes, right. And there was like
they were different people, but none of, at least from my experience, I didn't feel connected to the theater.
I
So
think
it
it's like
felt-
that. Yeah, like not in that way. Like there are people like Juno is like, well, we met at UCB. I'm like, but you weren't a part of
No.
UCB. Like you were
Yeah.
brought into
June
UCB.
and Casey are a perfect example because they always felt like a thing too.
Yeah,
But they were like an island over here, and you'd be like, they're talented. And when I would see them, you're always like, I like them.
yeah.
But we're not part. But I remember your guys' group, it was very clear. You specifically, I remember Wriggle specifically, where you're like, those dudes are going to win.
Well, I think what it was is like we had the keys to the castle for not because we were good, but because they needed someone to run it.
Right.
Like, it was like the UCB were doing their sketch show, their improv show, their like their own solo shows. They were
Yeah,
giving
yeah.
shows, but we were the ones that were like, well, we need a 10 o'clock Saturday show. We need a midnight
Yeah, but
show.
Paul, you're a very nice guy, but you were killing.
Well, you're nice to say it. I mean, but it was also for me,
Yeah.
no stakes. Let's do this show.
Yeah,
Great, let's
yeah,
go do this show.
interesting.
Like it wasn't like we were trying to get anywhere or do anything. It was like let's just
This
do something
was the
funny.
goal.
Yeah, the goal was just be and do funny shows and whatever. And we failed as much as we succeeded. But I think that bond and Human Giant, what came out of that was really just Aziz was a stand-up who was hanging around. Like there was another island of this theater, which was like, oh, stand-ups would come in and do shows, and they kind of improvise. They kind of do bits with comedians or like improvisers. And Aziz is like, oh, I'm going to do the stand-up show, and I want to host it with like an improviser. Like, I want to bridge that gap, and we can just do bits. So the first week that they hosted, it was Aziz and Rob doing something that became Shutterbugs, which was like children talent agents, and they shot a little video for it, and then they did like live parts of it in the show.
Right.
And then the second show Aziz hosted was me and Aziz, and we went to the Scientology Center and taped it in New York, and we went deep in and we did this thing.
So
and
you were
That's a
making
scary
sketches.
mission.
yeah, we were making these sketches, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, let's shoot this. And then Aziz and I like came up with this idea for Illusionators, and we shot that and it was very, again, organic. And some exec from MTV saw it and was like, you guys should have a sketch show. And we're like, us? Like
Right.
Rob has white hair. I'm bald, and this is Aziz. Like you have like the Hills
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
3-6 Mafia are doing shows. Like what? We're not in this
Yeah.
zeitgeist. But the guy who ran MTV at the time was like, I love Andy Milonakis, I love you,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
also love the Hills. And like, so he had a great thing, and
It was a great show.
Great show.
got to thread this needle, which
Yeah.
was like, it was the most fun experience we ever had because we had the support of a network to do whatever we wanted to do. And then we got out early. They gave us a third season. We had hosted like a 24-hour marathon, and we got our second season. Our ratings were doing pretty good. And then Aziz got Parks and Rec, and we made a decision as a group. It wasn't like, and I think Aziz
Yeah.
sometimes gets like upset if we say, oh, Aziz got Parks and Rec, so we stopped doing the show.
It was a team.
It was a team decision because we wrote as a team, and it was like every one of us made those sketches good. It wasn't like, oh, one person was a writer. Jason Wolner was part of this too, directed Borat and stuff, Borat too.
He also directed a really crazy, funny new
crazy-
thing.
Oh, my
I'm forgetting
God.
the name.
Paul T. Goldman.
It was
unbelievable.
It was so good. I literally I found his email, I think through Gasner, just to say like,
Yeah.
you did it, man.
No.
That show is
You did it.
unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
It's it better get. I don't know if it's getting a second season. It's unbelievable.
He is, and I've been watching Jason do that for 15 years.
Ugh,
I remember when he
it's
first went there and met the guy, and I was like, whoa, wait, what's going on?
What's the name of the show again?
Paul T. Goldman.
On Peacock.
Yes,
on
it's
Peacock.
so
6
good.
So
episodes.
Yes.
It's really great.
But sorry, I want to go back to you.
Yeah.
So then you're doing Human Giant because I remember that thing was erupting.
Yeah,
At
that
least in
was-
the
it
comedy
hit
world.
immediately.
And it was
Yeah.
fucking good.
Yeah, it really
So there
was.
are certain people who hit and there are certain shows that go, but you're like,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't.
yeah.
That was just you guys were doing it right, and then Aziz gets Parks. You guys saw it going, and then what happens to you?
At that point, we are sitting in this moment where we're like, what are we going to do? Because they want us back. And so I think we go for the benefit of the group. Let's not have, this is like, I feel very comfortable with this decision going like, I don't want Aziz to come in on a shoot day, like, because Mike, the guy who did The Office, I can't forget, Mike Scheer and Greg Daniels, they're like, we'll let you have Aziz whenever we're not using him. Like, we want him to keep on doing the show. But I was like, he's going to come in and be like, I didn't write this sketch.
It's different.
I feel like weird. And so I was like, we'll figure out what goes next. And there was about, maybe like 6 months into that, I really regretted that decision. and then about a couple, maybe 6 months after that, is when the league kind of came around, and that was the change. That was the change. But it was, I always feel like you have to do this, like swinging from one vine to the next and just jump and then don't know where you're going to go. It's like the league. We did that for 7 years. They wanted us back, and as a group, we were like, no, it's over. We did 7 years of it. Like, and people said to us, like, well, it's an ATM machine. Just keep on going back. It's like, yeah, but you want to feel that fun of doing it. Like, you don't want to feel bored by it. And we did that with NTSF. I did the show on Adult Swim, and it did 4 seasons, did 42 episodes. Like, we did it. Like, let's like you don't have to keep on doing everything, And that, like, the only show that I felt like I would have liked to have done another season for was Black Monday. We did 3 seasons of that, and that was Cheadle and Regina. And I think the biggest problem with that was, it was on Showtime. And not many people get Showtime, and it's like, hopefully it will get released on a different platform at one point. But to see it. But it was like, that was the only, it was such a good show and so funny that I wish we had like just a little bit more, because the cast was so great. Well, we appreciate you coming, man.
Truly.
I appreciate being here.
I'm genuinely excited to read the book after hearing about it.
The stories from your podcast, How Did This Get Made, are for you of your childhood are exceptional.
There's a lot of stuff in here that I forgot about that I'm excited for people to see and read. And here's the thing, and I'm here because I want to be here, but if you do pre-order the book, one of the things I'm very proud of is that I learned how to do my little website design, and I put a special feature section on my website of proof of these things happening. I have the proof, like
the receipts.
They have the receipts, because like I talk about this whole idea of like I collect things. I collect these like boxes full of mementos. So when I tell you that I went to go meet the Honey I Shrunk the Kids at my Blockbuster video, I have all those autographs with the Blockbuster logo on it. I've saved all that stuff.
Which
I have
lucky.
I have like plays. I have like this school play that I did.
Speaking of our second caller, I'm sad for your kids in a lot of years when they go, do we save this?
Well, that was the thing.
What do we do?
I know, that's the thing.
The fuck is Blockbuster Video?
Gonna have to have a decoupage room.
Well, now we gotta watch the original Honey I Shrunk the Kids, then get sad, miss our dad, and then throw this shit out.
I try to keep on compacting the boxes so it's less and less. I go through it and I sweep it.
Every time you move.
Yeah, I'm like, this is gonna be a little bit more. This is like this. I used to save every newspaper clipping of everything that I did. Like it was like, I want gotta save this, save this for my press kit. As people who like the local, as people who wants my Syracuse when I performed live at Syracuse.
I had the same thing.
Improv show.
I had the dorkiest little folder of like, you never know.
I'm at FedEx Kinko's trying to figure out how to like, my position it like this before Photoshop.
The saddest moment is when you realize something didn't work. Like when I delete my like really bad scripts from my Jake's writing folder. There's nothing sadder to go like, this one's never going to get developed further. This one's garbage.
They end up becoming like relics of just a time that was ill-fated. You think like this, I'll want this later to remember. You're like, I want to forget this. I really wish I didn't remember this.
I wish those 8 months of me being like, man, this is it. It wasn't it.
Yeah. And it's also like, it's hard to let it go, because it's hard to let it go. Like I worked on a reboot of Galaxy Quest for like 2 years. And and I'm like, this is great. And it was like, and they were like, everyone got fired. And it's like, and that's it, we're never gonna talk about it again. Like, all right.
No, my writing partner and I worked on an Alf reboot for 2 years, which seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, great.
And it was really just eventually these things that I thought were so cool and amazing. I was like, this just makes me sad.
Gosh. Paul, thank you for coming.
Thanks so much.
You're the best.
Thank you so much.
Hey, everybody. Thank you guys for watching us on YouTube. Please
like and subscribe so you don't miss any of this quality content.
Ring, ring.
Here to help. Go ahead. Oh, my God. What kind of games?
Cut.